Welcome. This is Crisis 169 coming to you live and pre-recorded with Power Spectrum Internet. I appreciate you guys watching my video. Appreciate you guys getting up there. Once again, if you're new to my channel, guys, I appreciate watching my channel first time. If you watch it 100 times or first time, please like, subscribe down below, turn notifications on, ring that bell. Now, this is a topic of something that I started years ago on the old channels I had. I'm going to try to bring it back here for you guys, called Gaming History of gaming history. First is about the crash of 1983. It's something that people don't understand. I was 2 years old when it happened. I was born 1981. So that being said, guys, go into it real quick and get into it right now. Now, first off, the big disclaimer is no, it was not caused because ET and the gaming crash happened. No, it wasn't just one thing. It's never one thing that does anything. Okay, folks, never one thing. No, Titanic didn't hit an iceberg and just sunk right away. No, it hit an iceberg and had multiple issues. You know, the metal was bad, rivets popped, stuff like that. So a lot more than just one little issue. The Titanic sunk. The Challenger the Challenger explosion didn't happen because an O-ring failed. Well, that was the main cause, but it was destined to fail because the O-rings were garbage and it was cold night, cold morning actually in Florida. This is why they don't do anything above 45, 50 degrees because of Challenger explosion. That being said, though, how does that correlate with the gaming history? It does not really, but I wanted to use some underlying factors of other history changing events that made stuff better. Like ships now better, rocket spaceships are better, gaming is better. PC, consoles, handheld, switches, whatever like that. Now that being said, though, what is really, what was the gaming crash 19 about? Well, to go back in time, we need Doc Brown's time machine to go back in time, but we don't have that. The best thing we have is my memory, because I'm 40 years old, so I'm around that age where I remember a lot of this stuff. Not everything, hopefully, not everything a lot. And I ain't that old. So that being said, though, what really caused the game crash 83? I could say too many consoles, ET, bad games, and that's it. Roll credits, and then everybody goes home. No, I want to go into a small detail of what had really happened, and because of that, why we had the practices from Nintendo as they become more of an tyrannical thing, and still are to this day, but a lot more in the 90s and 80s and 90s, a lot more in the 90s. Um, that being said, though, the crash 1983 happened during the boom of the gaming industry. The gaming industry started around the 70s with Atari 2600 or AVS. Atari was making game consoles. People were smoking a lot of other different things. Cigarettes came with game ideas. One day they sold themselves to the devil, Time Warner, for $25 million. This opened the door to the gaming crash, but it's not the main link pin, but this opened the door. When Atari sold itself to Time Warner for 25, $30 million back in the 80s, early 80s, late 70s, because of a cash flow problem. Um, then they wear business suits, ties, you get work at a certain time, you get deadlines for games. Then you started seeing the problems, okay? And it wasn't really Time Warner's fault because going back to back in a different area, WCW, Jim Crockett Productions is a wrestling story now. And a different analogy, but same thing, okay? Jim Crockett Productions was a wrestling company in the Carolinas, Ric Flair, like that, Four Horsemen, woo, right? We are the Four Horsemen, right? Four. Four Horsemen. Anyway, though, I'm going rabbit trails again. Anyway, though, what's happening is that you have the wrestling industry, like the gaming industry back then. It was bound to explode, but didn't explode what people thought Jim Crockett thought it was going to do in his area. It was big, but they kept going farther and farther and farther out west. They went to Las Vegas, based themselves there, flew back from California, went to different places. They stayed around St. Louis and Chicago. They'll probably still in business today, what Arn Anderson said in Rise and Fall of WCW. If they stayed around that area, they'll probably still be in business today. or be probably a small business today still, maybe working with wrestling entertainment, maybe doing more developmental area, maybe doing what more Florida did, and became a developmental hotspot with that, and also with OVW at the time. And it could have been something different, but we'll never know because history went on a different course. So they were $5 million in the hole, and because they had all these problems, they overspent too much. How does this correlate with gaming? Guys? Very simple, because um, Atari overspent themselves and had to sell their soul to pretty much Time Warner. And Time Warner bought up wrestling that they didn't want. They bought a gaming division they didn't really care about either. So you had two entities that people like. I like the wrestling, but I like the gaming. I like the wrestling. And they took both of them and they, yeah, we have them, but one does good ratings and that's okay. One does great games still, but that's okay. We don't really care about any one of these. And they just bought them because they're the Walt Disney back then of telecommunications. They bought gaming thing, and then they turned around and bought a wrestling thing that really didn't really care about. Later on, bought wrestling later on. But my point is, they bought something that they hated and didn't want because good ratings. They bought gaming that they understand and made their kids like, oh, well, kids like games, I guess. So they'll like this that dear old dad is part of the company that owns games now. Yay, maybe we'll sell some more cable boxes or something. Time Warner Cable was still around. And maybe they'll probably sell some more cable boxes or whatever, right? That's what they thought, thinking, we'll get some, they didn't package Atari 2600 with a cable box. No, but they probably would have if they could. Because Time Warner back then was kind of weird. I think we had Time Warner on Fort Evans. It was all right for us, but I don't really remember it all, but whatever. Anyway, though, that was Time Warner for you. And they bought them up, and then they started doing weird stuff. And of course, business side, what people people at Atari weren't used to, being at 8 o'clock, leaving at 5 o'clock, working deadlines, stuff. Usual business that you do nowadays. That's normal now. Back then, to them, it's like, oh my god, I can't smoke this non-cigarette stuff and come up with ideas anymore. No, you got to have ideas. So they had to go over there and do ideas. Now they had issues because 4 lead programmers wanted credit for the games they created. Back then, you had created by David blah blah. No, Atari allowed some the creators have credit for the games they created, but of course Atari made all this money. They probably gave a good mate same eight, I say 5%, 1%, whatever. I don't know what the exact number was. But was it all? Maybe it wasn't all. Maybe they didn't care back then because they're getting credit enough. And sometimes people don't want money; they want admiration. They want to be told, "Hey, this is created by Mark. This is created by Christ. This is created by John down the street." And that's what they want. They always don't want the greenbacks. Greenbacks are not bad, but they don't always want the money, money, money. Some people want to be given the praise for creating something more than the money. Now, the praise is good, but the money will come in later on, obviously. Well, they were told by, I think, Trenton, no, Trenton, who was the CEO of the division of over Time Warner over Activision, but Atari, damn it. Atari. Sorry. That developers are no more important than the person who put the game together on the simulator. Of course, they weren't like, yeah, hey, it's awesome. We're being treated like crap. No, they're like, you know what? Screw you. They walked away. And then they formed Activision. Activision now is in the news because they have a lot of issues with CEOs and weird other critical activities that's not good in the workplace. But back then, they weren't. You had, the Aquarius, and you had all these people running around sex and that entire activity because it was a normal lifestyle. People went home with everybody else. Married not, they went home with everybody else. Now you couldn't do that in Time Warner because of business suits tie. HR says you can't do this, so you get. But Atari went off. Activision now. Activision went off and created their own third party. First one always. Activision. They created their own company. Once again, Activision. Call of Duty, Spirit, twirling, no scoping. I mean, amp drinking kids out there understand this. Activision creates Call of Duty. But back then they created Pitfall and games like that. And they put games in 2600. Atari sued. And this is where the floodgates of the crash comes open. Around 1981 ish, year or two before the crash happened, Activision was sued by Atari and said they can't put games in our system. This is like they can't, fair use. Boom. Reason why they lost the case, in other cases too as well, because their console was Frankensteined by PC parts. They went to a PC and took parts and created 2600. So you had a lot of clones, and this is going to feed into this crash. But a lot of clones came out. ColecoVision, Television, Gemini, going like maybe 13 systems at one time, and all of them had compatibility to play 2600 games, as well as their own library games, and some were better than Atari. I think ColecoVision had Pac-Man that wasn't Pac-Man, called Dot Muncher or whatever. That was a Pac-Man clone that looked better than the Pac-Man that came out in 2600. But I'll get more on that here in a little bit about the games that caused issues too. But when Activision won the case and they started creating games for the 2600, then you had Mattel, a Barbie company, making games. Prina Dog Chow, Chuck the Chuck Wagon was a game. If you sent them two proofs of purchase, you're given a game called Chuck Wagon that played in 2600. The games were crap. But you know what? Everybody was making games. People were making games in their damn bedrooms, going to a local gas station, giving the tenant, say, the person who owned it, made 50% of the sales they made. Say charged, say first game $10. Okay, gave the guy $5, whatever. Next game, they gave $20, $10, $40. It's lucrative business for this kid. This guy is making some money on the side, but he's also making games that are not the same level as a Activision or even Atari. But Atari back then, even the way Atari started making some bad games. E.T. was an example. Pac-Man's example. Games were not being finished on time. Games being rushed from production. E.T. was only given 6 weeks to be created. You had to create the game, develop it, and mass produce it in 6 weeks in September for a holiday release because the movie came out because everyone wants, Dave Azar wanted it out. And the guy who created it, made some money off it because I think he had like a deal with Dave Azar and Time Warner. Hey, I create this game. I want a percentage of each game created and each game sold, whatever. So he said, no, he made a killing off it. And of course, people bought the game and they wanted to kill Time Warner because the game was crap. It wasn't as bad as it was. But no, if you had instruction manual, you know what to do with it because the game required a lot of reading. Now you had to find parts of spaceship and go phone home. The game was it. Once you found the parts, you went home. The game was over with. But it was probably easier gameplay other than Pac-Man. Another game that had you're doing instead of doing this, it was doing this, and the dots were dashes. The ghosts kept disappearing, reappearing. Ghosts weren't the same. They weren't even all on the screen. Many different problems. But going back to the kid or the guy who creating games in his bedroom and putting them in a gas station and selling them for $40, now you're getting even more bad games dumped on people. Too many consoles, way too many choices. Companies now that were creating game divisions didn't know how to create games. Like, let's say Parker Brothers will get Empire Strikes Back. They'll spend hundreds of thousands of millions, probably millions of dollars on license upon Empire Strikes Back. They get the best game franchises, but they murder them because they have no clue how to make them. So then people are getting burned now by ET from Atari, um, Pac-Man from Atari, uh, game being murdered by Mattel and Parker Brothers and whatever game franchise that they can get tons of money for because they have big deep pockets and create all these games that are crap. Now turning back around again, you have the arcade boom is filling up now. Arcade are having trouble now. It's still the early '80s, but when you have Safeways and 7-Elevens and dentist office filling arcades, you're kind of getting kind of oversaturated. But that was still maybe about 5, 6 years away for it finally collapsed, that era. But going back to the gaming crash, console crash, you had too many choices. And if a father gonna go in for Christmas and buy his kids games, he could buy them one game $40, or buy them 20 games for $5, 5, 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, 35, 40. Let's say 8 games for $40. I'll give him these 8 games and have more gifts open on Christmas. Because he's not part of the gaming understanding. His sons are now. When they're older, they understand what the gaming generation was, and they respect it more. They know, Johnny, you don't want that crappy game of you know of Sonic whatever 3D riders, race riders on. You don't want that guy's garbage. His son knows it. His father does not. Simple understanding. Okay, be that as it may, you still had people buying crappy games. Then what really drove people away from consoles was Atari came out with 5200 super system. It was super. It was better. The games were better. Of course, the controller was garbage. It oxidized really fast because they cheaped out on the controller. Once again, Atari and Time Warner just didn't want to do anything other than everything the hard way. Could just give us something good, something workable, and we can play it. No, you clean it off. Week later, oxidized. Can't use a controller. It's literally the angry video game nerd made a whole video on this. You cannot clean it enough to get to work. It worked me a couple days and oxidized that fast because they use plastic parts, plastic stuff, and the plastic oxidizes. Why don't you use an antioxidizer? People probably do. They'll probably damage it. Of course, then again, it ain't gonna matter because the game console don't work anyway. Because the game console, you can find consoles and games pennies, but you can't play them. That being said, though, now you have a problem because now ColecoVision and the rest of them now are creating an adapter 2600 to play 2600 games on their system. So now you bought a 2600 that you don't play anymore because the games you bought are garbage. You're not buying any more games. Consoles are sitting on shelves. Games are sitting in bargain bins for almost dollars. And people are losing their minds. And December of 1982, when people started pulling back, consoles were losing money. Activision lost like $6 million, and they went to PCs. Great game PCs. And that's where it happened. Game PCs became the norm. It was a simulator. It was not really fun, but it was a game. And you could play some games on PC that were fun. But most people now are going back to simulations, not to fun console gaming. PCs kept going on with gaming, but it was a whole different experience. So people who were burned, became the PC master race when they realized that consoles were crap and they were a fad. They went to PCs and never got off it. Until probably now. They're probably my age or a little older than me. They probably still play PC games because it's easier for them to understand. But the game industry died for a while. All because too many console choices, way too many bad games, no regulation, no quality insurance, and too many cooks in the kitchen, and not enough people who understood that the bubble was inflating, but also you're poking a hole in the same time with the bubble. So as much air you're putting into it, a lot of air is coming out. Till one day it expanded and it exploded. Too much for the air couldn't come out fast enough and it exploded. And it died for a short period of time, for about 2 years. The home console market was dead. Flatline. Mattel, Parker Brothers, companies went out of business. They can't sell their games. They're dumping them on each other. They're selling them to third party distributors. They're going. Atari took 27 like about three million games, and dumped them in the Arizona desert, crushed them, and buried them. And Time Warner sold off Atari, and that was it. Flatline, completely dead. All because they didn't understand what they had. Like what Time Warner had wrestling, they destroyed it. But that was kind of destroying itself because that was internal fighting. They had a gaming company. They could have created it, nourished it, but they just poured some Miracle Grow, make money on it, threw some water on it once in a while, and it grew, but they didn't sustain it because they didn't know how to sustain this thing. Then it shriveled and died. That being said, now Activision's still making game PC at the time, and a watch company, a company that made household appliances, Nintendo, walks in on the scene. They're looked at as being like an idiot for getting a gaming console. But the Famicom was good. It sold real well. Japan still has a gaming market. The arcade's still better there now than it was ever. Um, Fast forward to 1984, 85, Nintendo comes out only in New York and Los Angeles, creating the NES. They add Rob the Robot there. That becomes more of a toy. Then, as people got hooked on it, they took off Rob the Robot and kept the blaster, kept the light gun blaster, and two controllers, and Duck Hunt and Mario Brothers. And we're off and running again to another generation of gamers. A little younger than me, or old as me, who bought into gaming and played Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, and 3 came out in 1990. And I'm telling you, the damn 89, 90, and the game world lost his mind. And now I've been riding a wave. And will there be a crash again? My answer is I don't know. With video streaming being more potent than it was before, I can't tell you because I don't know. I don't know what's going to happen in next couple months or years, for that matter. I gotta drink. Sorry. I can't tell you what's going to happen. I can't because I don't know. I can tell you though, Stadia is pretty much dead in the water. That's gone. When Google finally puts in a nail, it's gone. And Amazon Luna has a better chance than ever. I have a Fire TV. I can get controller at the store and play it. But the crash of '83 affected a lot of things. Nintendo became really narcissistic about the practices. So much so, in the '90s, federal judge came in, told Nintendo they couldn't do this stuff anymore in the '80s, early '90s. So they back off a lot of practices. But they owed 75% of the market. Sega came in, took about 50% of it away. Until Sega went the way of the dodo because they were doing the old gaming crash way of throwing consoles out there and something did, and just like a dog chasing a car, when they caught the car, they didn't know what to do with it because they didn't plan that far ahead. So Sega was the second gaming crash that happened on company. They had when Sega Saturn was out, Dreamcast came out. They had 7 consoles out there. They had the Master System, Genesis, The 32X is add-on Genesis, but I added on CD, Sega CD, Sega Nomad, and the Sega Saturn 7. Maybe 8 if you count the Dreamcast. That was a reboot and it looked a lot better than people thought it was. So 7. They were the second video game crash. It killed them. It killed them. But it eventually killed the Sega company, gaming manufacturing company, console manufacturing side. But it was second crash in my mind. It was just a company that people liked. That Sega didn't know how to deal with a lot of the issues they should have known how to deal with. And shame on them for not knowing how to deal with it. And that's something that's now you have big three, Nintendo, well Sony, Nintendo, Microsoft, and Luna is a fourth one if they can get their act together. I think, and my predictions coming true, I think Luna is going to be the one that's going to poke holes through the fourth dimension and become the streaming service of choice. Game Pass is doing it with simple downloading and going. PlayStation Now is okay, but it's not as good as Game Pass. If they can let you download PS3 games to your PS5 or PS4 Pro or PC or whatever, and you can download them and play them without having to have an internet connection going all the time, that's a wrap. PlayStation will take the lead because there's so many games PlayStation 3 people want to play, but you're hindered by a damn freaking issue with a stupid you know dumbass connection. I had 400 megabyte download a couple years ago. I had a promotion with Spectrum, and I was getting timed out on the games. I have 200 megabyte download, and I'm downloading games pretty quickly. And I'm still having trouble on PlayStation now. I haven't played it on the PlayStation yet or PC in a while because I just haven't had time and I don't care much about it anymore. But when you have 400 megabyte download and you're having a timeout counter come on saying game logging out in 10 seconds and problem with connectivity, got 400 megabyte download, 450, 460, almost 480 download, and you're telling me I have problems? That's where I think that Luna is going to poke a hole and become the streaming capital because Amazon has a lot of money. Now, with the tornadoes and the issues, lost lives, they're being given some money to those families that people totally had to stay in their location. Now, granted, locations where they had them in pods working were, reinforced tornado shelters, by all means. But I guarantee they weren't. Now, if they did do that and people ran off and left in the bathroom, and you had to, they got scared and left. Of course, tornado coming towards you. Who would get scared of tornado coming towards you? If you ain't scared, then something wrong with you, or you're godlike, and I'm not godlike. So, that being said, guys, I do believe that we're pretty much better off than we were before. But I would hope that the gaming crash won't happen again. We already had a gaming crash once with Sega, and Stadia is pretty much dead in the water right now, as they are. So that's the second gaming crash for the. Well, we had a gaming crash with the streaming service Stadia. We had one couple years earlier, but it didn't really matter because that company was kind of floundering anyway. I don't know. Wait, no, it wasn't Uon or something different. It was a better service that actually took Game Pass, took from it, PlayStation Now took from it, and made it different. But I would hope that people understand, respect it. If you want to learn more about the gaming crash, other than gaming, G4 Icons is on YouTube. It's free. G4 Tech TV. G4 came back, but Tech TV was an old thing. I used to watch my butt all the time. It has gaming crash, Nintendo on there, the Xbox, original Xbox, even 360. I think even 360. I think 360. I think it is. You can watch all this old gaming history and get an idea of what it was like back in that time. seeing his history, reliving it the first time, or myself, reliving it again, or watching it the first time. So G4 icons. Just type it in your YouTube search bar on your computer or your Xbox, whatever, or even not really. You can't switch yet. Switch might get online. Switch might get YouTube. I'm hearing rumored they may release an app for it. Maybe eventually they do. It'd be nice. But if you have it on the computer, laptop, type in Google, type in YouTube, and type in G4 icons, and it'll bring up all the icons they have of the gaming industry, from the Crash all the way up to Mario to Donkey Kong, I think, to even Mortal Kombat down there. ESRB too as well. So you get an idea where all this stuff came from. So you have an idea why we have all of this stuff and what came from it. So you have a better idea of what's going on. So I think it'd be better to embrace yourself with gaming history, because the more you know, the farther you go. And if you decide to get into a gaming history job or gaming development job, well, I'll watch this stuff on YouTube. I'll watch this guy who's rambling on for 40 minutes, 30 minutes now. But I might want to get into this gaming market and dabble in this. And you never know. You might find it very appealing. You might hate it. Who knows? But go for it. Read up on gaming history. Libraries have good stuff, but YouTube has pretty good with G4 icons. You can go on the Crash. The gaming historian has a great stuff about the Crash. Um, Many other people. Post Mortem has good stuff about the Xbox 360, Crash, and the Xbox One. There's great history you can run about gaming in your time, in your present generation, all generations past. So I encourage you guys to really read up on this stuff and really look into it, because you get a better idea of what I dealt with when I was your age and younger, and what you guys deal with now in the future. Then you might get, yeah, I don't understand it, but I respect it now because it makes sense, because Nintendo is twined into this, and the Xbox into this, PlayStation into this, and Atari was this company that was great, but it's dead now, and Sega was good, but they did more than this. Something you can do. I appreciate you guys watching my video. Thank you for watching my video. Thank you for my subscribers. Once again, if you're new to my channel and you watch first time, don't hesitate to go down there and press up or down on the arrow. While you're down there, comment below. Turn notifications on, ring that bell. Subscribe to my channel. It helps me a lot. I'm also on Twitch. I'll see you guys later. Peace out. Love. Don't be fearful. Just retain knowledge and strength. God bless all you. Have a good day. Peace out.